What happens when one of Hollywood's biggest environmental advocates sits down with a talk show host who's determined to tear him down? The answer is absolute chaos. And what you're about to witness is the most explosive television moment of the year. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what you think about what unfolds here. The studio lights were blazing hot as Leonardo DiCaprio settled into the plush chair across from the view panel. He had come on the show to discuss his latest environmental documentary, expecting the usual softball questions about saving the planet. What he got instead was a verbal ambush that would leave viewers' jaws on the floor. Joy Behar leaned forward with that signature smirk of hers, her notes spread out like ammunition. "So Leo," she began, drawing out his name with obvious disdain. "You're here talking about climate change again. Tell me, how many private jets did you take to get here today?" DiCaprio's eyebrows furrowed slightly. He maintained his composure, though you could see the surprise flash across his face. "Actually, Joy, I drove here from my hotel. I've been very conscious about reducing my carbon footprint, which is exactly why I'm here today to discuss—" "Oh, please," Joy interrupted, waving her hand dismissively. "You lecture the rest of us about our carbon emissions while you yacht around the Mediterranean with supermodels. Don't you think that's just a tiny bit hypocritical?" The other hosts shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Whoopi Goldberg glanced nervously between her co-host and their guest. The audience fell silent, sensing the tension crackling through the studio air. DiCaprio straightened in his chair, his voice remaining calm but gaining an edge. "Joy, I think you're conflating personal choices with systemic advocacy. Yes, I've made mistakes in the past, but I've also donated over $100 million to environmental causes. I've changed my entire lifestyle. Thanks for watching. And like, 100 million? Joy scoffed loudly. "That's pocket change for someone worth 300 million. What percentage of your wealth is that really? And don't get me started on that foundation of yours. How much of that money actually goes to the environment versus administrative costs? I'm sorry, are you questioning the legitimacy of my foundation?" DiCaprio's voice dropped lower, the first sign that his famous composure was beginning to crack. "Because if you are, I can provide you with detailed financial reports that show exactly where every dollar goes." Joy leaned back with satisfaction, clearly enjoying pushing his buttons. "Oh, I'm sure you can provide reports. Hollywood accounting is famous for making numbers. Say whatever you want them to say. Just like how you made yourself look like an environmentalist while burning fossil fuels faster than most small countries." The studio audience began murmuring. Some gasps could be heard as Joy's attacks became more personal and vicious. Sonny Hostin tried to jump in with a question about the documentary itself, but Joy wasn't done. "You know what really bothers me about celebrities like you?" Joy continued, pointing her pen at him like a weapon. "You think because you played someone important in a movie, that somehow makes you an expert on everything. You dropped out of high school. Leo, what exactly qualifies you to lecture world leaders about climate policy?" DiCaprio's jaw tightened visibly. His hands, which had been resting calmly on the armrests, now gripped them slightly. "Education comes in many forms, Joy. I've spent the last 15 years working with scientists, researchers, and policy experts. I've visited melting glaciers, deforested areas, and communities affected by climate change. Have you?" "I don't need to visit glaciers to know when someone's being a hypocrite," Joy shot back. "And I certainly don't need to be lectured by someone who thinks private jet travel is justified as long as you buy carbon offsets afterward. That's like saying it's okay to punch someone as long as you apologize later." "That's a completely false equivalency," DiCaprio responded, his voice rising slightly. "Carbon offsets, when done properly, do make a measurable difference. The projects I support have removed thousands of tons of carbon from the atmosphere." Joy rolled her eyes dramatically. "Oh, please. Carbon offsets are just a way for rich people to buy their way out of guilt. It's like medieval indulgences, Pay money and all your sins are forgiven. Meanwhile, regular people have to choose between heating their homes and buying groceries because of energy policies that people like you champion. The accusation hung in the air like smoke. DiCaprio leaned forward, his blue eyes flashing with anger. People like me? What exactly do you mean by that, Joy? I mean wealthy Hollywood elites who are completely disconnected from how real people live, she replied without hesitation. You live in a bubble of yes men and private islands. When gas prices go up because of environmental regulations, you don't feel it. When energy costs skyrocket, it doesn't affect your lifestyle one bit. You're absolutely wrong, DiCaprio said, his voice now carrying real heat. I grew up in Los Angeles. My mother was a single parent. I know what it's like to worry about bills. And that's exactly why I care about creating sustainable solutions that benefit everyone, not just the wealthy. Joy laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the studio. Oh, spare me the sob story. You haven't worried about a bill in 30 years. Don't sit there and pretend you understand the struggles of working families when you spend more on a single vacation than most people make in a lifetime. The camera captured the moment DiCaprio's facade finally began to crack. His face flushed red, and he shook his head in disbelief. This is exactly the problem with political discourse today. Instead of discussing actual solutions, you're more interested in personal attacks and character assassination. Character assassination? Joy's voice pitched higher with mock surprise. I'm just asking questions that your fawning fans in the media are too starstruck to ask. If you can't handle basic scrutiny about your lifestyle choices, maybe you shouldn't be positioning yourself as a moral authority on environmental issues. Basic scrutiny? DiCaprio repeated, his voice incredulous. You've done nothing but attack me personally from the moment I sat down. You haven't asked a single question about the documentary, the science, or the solutions we're proposing. Joy shrugged with feigned innocence. I'm asking about your credibility. If you're going to be the face of environmentalism, don't people deserve to know whether you actually practice what you preach? DiCaprio stood up abruptly from his chair, the sudden movement causing the other hosts to flinch. You know what, Joy? I came here in good faith to discuss serious environmental issues that affect every person on this planet, and all you've done is launch personal attacks. Joy remained seated, a satisfied smile playing on her lips. Oh, so now you're going to storm off? Very mature. Leo. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You can't handle being challenged. Challenged? DiCaprio's voice boomed through the studio. You call this a challenge? You haven't presented a single fact, a single counter-argument, or a single alternative solution. All you've done is try to tear me down personally because you disagree with environmental policy. Sit down, Leonardo, Joy commanded, her voice dripping with condescension. You're embarrassing yourself on national television. I'm embarrassing myself? DiCaprio laughed bitterly, still standing. You're the one who's turned what should have been a serious discussion about our planet's future into a tabloid hit piece. Whoopi finally found her voice, trying to restore order. Leo, please, let's just... No, Whoopi. DiCaprio interrupted, his eyes never leaving Joy. I want to hear more of Joy's brilliant insights. Please, Joy, enlighten us all. What's your solution to climate change? What's your plan for the millions of people who will be displaced by rising sea levels? Joy leaned back in her chair, clearly relishing the moment. My solution? Stop listening to hypocritical celebrities and start listening to scientists who don't have massive financial conflicts of interest. Financial conflicts of interest? DiCaprio's voice rose another octave. What financial conflicts are you talking about? What? I've invested my own money into renewable energy, sustainable technology, and conservation efforts. If anything, I lose money by advocating for environmental causes. Oh, please, Joy waved dismissively. Your Tesla investments alone have made you millions as governments push electric vehicle mandates. Your solar company stocks have tripled as subsidies pour in. Don't pretend this isn't profitable for you. Are you seriously suggesting that I'm advocating for environmental causes to make money? DiCaprio's face was now bright red with anger. That's not just wrong. It's insane. What's insane is thinking we should restructure our entire economy based on the opinions of someone whose biggest qualification is pretending to be other people for a living. Joy shot back. The studio audience was completely silent now, watching this unprecedented meltdown unfold. Sarah Haynes and Alyssa Farah Griffin sat frozen, unsure whether to intervene or let it continue. DiCaprio began pacing behind his chair. My biggest qualification? I've worked with NASA scientists, NOAA researchers, and climatologists from every major university. I've funded peer-reviewed studies and conservation projects on 6 continents. And I'm sure they all told you exactly what you wanted to hear, Joy replied smoothly. Funny how the science always seems to align perfectly with your political agenda, isn't it? Political agenda? DiCaprio stopped pacing and stared at her in disbelief. Saving the planet is a political agenda? Protecting future generations is a political agenda? When it involves massive government control over energy, transportation, and industry, yes, it absolutely is a political agenda. Joy responded firmly. And when celebrities like you push these policies while living lifestyles that mock the very principles you claim to support, it becomes propaganda. DiCaprio slammed his hand down on the back of his chair, the loud bang echoing through the studio. That's enough. You don't know what you're talking about. You sit here in your television studio making jokes and attacking people who are actually trying to solve problems. Actually trying to solve problems? Joy's voice became even more mocking. Your idea of solving problems is flying to climate conferences in private jets to give speeches about how everyone else needs to sacrifice. I have not taken a private jet to a climate conference in over 3 years, DiCaprio shouted, his composure completely shattered now. But you wouldn't know that, because you don't actually research anything you say. You just repeat talking points, designed to attack anyone who threatens your worldview. Joy stood up now too, matching his energy. My worldview? My worldview is that we shouldn't destroy our economy and way of life based on predictions from the same people who told us we'd be in an ice age 40 years ago. That's a complete lie. DiCaprio's voice cracked with frustration. The scientific consensus on climate change has been consistent for decades. You're spreading disinformation. Disinformation? Joy laughed harshly. I'm spreading disinformation? You're the one who made a documentary claiming Miami would be underwater by now. You're the one who said Arctic ice would be gone by 2020. Where's the ice, Leo? The Arctic has lost 75% of its ice mass. DiCaprio roared. The data is clear. The evidence is overwhelming. And you're sitting here denying reality. I'm sitting here asking why we should trust someone who's been wrong about every prediction he's made. Joy fired back. You've been preaching climate doom for 20 years. And yet, here we are. Still above water. Still growing food. Still living our lives. DiCaprio pointed an accusatory finger at her. People are dying, Joy. Extreme weather events are increasing in frequency and intensity. Droughts are destroying communities. Hurricanes are getting stronger. But you don't care because it doesn't affect your comfortable life in New York. People have always died from natural disasters, Joy replied coldly. That doesn't mean we should panic and hand over control of our lives to environmental extremists who want to tell us what cars to drive, what food to eat, and how to heat our homes. Environmental extremists? DiCaprio's voice was now hoarse from shouting. Wanting clean air and water makes me an extremist? Wanting a habitable planet for future generations makes me an extremist? Wanting to control every aspect of human behavior under the guise of environmental protection makes you an extremist, yes. Joy answered, without hesitation. The tension in the studio was now suffocating. Security guards had moved closer to the set, ready to intervene if necessary. The other hosts looked like deer in headlights, completely overwhelmed by the hostility between their guest and co-host. DiCaprio ran his hands through his hair, clearly struggling to regain control. This is unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. You're more interested in scoring political points than discussing solutions to the greatest challenge humanity has ever faced. And you're more interested in virtue signaling than admitting your entire movement is built on fear-mongering and hypocrisy, Joy retorted. Fear-mongering? DiCaprio's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. Joy, do you have children? Yes, I do, and I don't appreciate you bringing them into this, Joy responded defensively. I'm not bringing them into anything, DiCaprio said, his voice growing louder again. The climate crisis is bringing them into it. Every day we delay action is another day we're stealing from their future. Joy rolled her eyes dramatically. Oh, spare me the emotional manipulation. My children will be fine, because they'll live in a world with abundant energy, modern technology, and economic prosperity. Not the pre-industrial wasteland you're trying to create. DiCaprio's face contorted with disbelief and rage. Pre-industrial wasteland? Are you completely out of your mind? Renewable energy is the most advanced technology humanity has ever developed. Advanced technology that doesn't work when the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine, Joy sneered. But I'm sure your mansions have backup generators for when the grid fails. This conversation is over, DiCaprio declared, moving toward the edge of the set. I refuse to waste another second trying to have a rational discussion with someone who's clearly more interested in character assassination than actual facts. Running away again, Leo? Joy called after him mockingly. This is perfect. The great environmental crusader can't handle a few tough questions from a talk show host. DiCaprio spun around so fast that the cameras struggled to follow him. Tough questions? Tough questions? You haven't asked me a single legitimate question this entire time. All you've done is spew conspiracy theories and personal attacks. Conspiracy theories? Joy's voice reached a shrieking pitch. It's a conspiracy theory to point out that you live like a billionaire while telling everyone else to make sacrifices? I have made sacrifices, DiCaprio roared, his voice echoing off the studio walls. I've changed my entire lifestyle. I drive electric vehicles. I've made my homes carbon neutral. I eat a plant-based diet. Joy burst into mocking laughter. Oh, you eat plants? Well, that certainly makes up for the yacht and the private island. I sold the yacht 3 years ago. DiCaprio screamed, his voice cracking with fury. But you don't care about facts, do you, Joy? You just want to destroy anyone who threatens your narrow-minded worldview. My narrow-minded worldview? Joy shot back, her own voice now at maximum volume. I'm not the one trying to fundamentally transform civilization based on computer models. Those computer models have been proven correct over and over again. DiCaprio's hands were shaking with anger now. Every prediction, every warning, every projection has come true or been exceeded. Really? Joy's voice dripped with sarcasm. Then, why are you still here making the same doom and gloom predictions you made 20 years ago? Because people like you keep blocking the solutions. DiCaprio exploded. Every time we try to implement renewable energy, carbon pricing, or conservation measures, you and your allies spread lies